Well, let's take a closer look at that grain story, the AARTO Act and its demerit scheme implications for drivers. And if there's time, we'll look ahead to the week with SABC Economics editor Tshepo Mongoai. Tshepo, good evening to you and welcome. With this grain deal, time seems to be of the essence, but it's unlikely that Russia will make a U-turn on its position now. What are your thoughts?
Well, absolutely. It's very clear that the secondary sanctions imposed on Russia are really taking a bite. And now Russia is retaliating. And of course, they know that, of course, they need to use some kind of measures that would have quite a big impact on the global scale. And of course, the agreement that they've had to allow Ukraine to move the grain was actually the most viable one in order to ensure that their voice is heard. And as many have expressed, is going to push up the price of grain. We've seen international wheat prices been surging since Friday, in fact, in anticipation of this particular gesture, almost 8% now. But we've also seen domestically the suffix prices. They've also responded. I know yellow maize was around 3,500 last Friday, is currently around 3,800.
Wow.
That shows, although we do have our own domestic prices, they are somehow linked to what's happening internationally. So that means that, the prices that we pay for maize meal, for yellow maize is used as a feed for animals, is going to increase. Already, we know consumers are battling with very high prices across. So it's very interesting to see going forward what is going to be our position. Wheat, for example, we still import quite large tons into the country because the local plants cannot meet the demands. And that's what is used for bread and many other things in the bakeries. And we know that bread it's a staple diet for many households. So we'll be looking very closely to see what is likely to be the impact of this. But I have no doubt that Russia wants to drive a point that indeed they are serious. They want those sanctions that are affecting their banking sector because they cannot transact to be relaxed. And whether the European countries will and the US will actually respond to demands of Russia, I doubt they will. But there's definitely going to be an impasse.
Yeah, this is the insidious convergence of politics and economics. And no doubt, as you say, South Africa is already feeling the impacts of that and will continue to do so. So if you don't mind, let me leapfrog over AARTO, because we had some discussion on that, and then go to the other big thing that will likely impact our pockets and our livelihoods in South Africa. And this is the SARB. We're also expecting inflation numbers this week. What are we predicting? What are we likely to get by week's end?
Well, there are signs that inflation could be coming down, although the exchange rate is still quite flexible. We don't know which way it will go, but there is some biasness towards weakness in the rand-dollar exchange, although we've seen some movement last week, strengthening substantially, but that's not guaranteed. Inflation, however, the last print was better than expected, of course. Now the question is, we are waiting for Wednesday to see if indeed the trend will continue. If it does, there will be a very good story and a case to make, perhaps, and the MPC will understand. And maybe they will not hike, as many are expecting that we could see a 25 basis point hike. There's some divergence now in terms of views. I see some house views. They are now saying that we could see the decision to leave it unchanged. Because of those improvements. You look at the transport side of inflation. There, it's very clear that we are seeing some improvement, inflation coming down. We've seen the fuel price. You might be feeling it because that's quite instant. When you go to your nearest garage and it costs less to fill up. The issue is, I'm sure the Reserve Bank has made its case consumers are now struggling. I don't think inflation could be as widespread than it could. And then that's what exactly they are trying to prevent, that we don't see inflation spreading like a wildfire, where you have workers demanding more salaries, and as a result employers passing on those higher salaries to what they produce or are selling. You are seeing some pressures. I mean, today you've had some banks already saying that they are seeing signs of distress, that consumers are battling to pay.
People are struggling to pay back their loans.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think you have two banks now that have made it very clear that they are already seeing the signs that consumers are in distress. And I suppose that's exactly what the Reserve Bank wants, so that when consumers are in distress, businesses are not able to easily pass on those high prices, because if they do, then nobody's going to buy their produce or their services, whatever they do. But on the administered side of things, that's where we're still seeing that there are still a lot of pass-through of high prices, as you've seen with the Eskom price.
Tshepo, thank you very much for sharing with us what a look ahead at the week is likely to be, and what developments we're likely to expect from the South African Reserve Bank. Appreciate you as always. SABC Economics editor Tshepo Mongoai.